Hey bestie, it's time for your next session of Real Talk Friend Therapy with your favorite big sister auntie queen, Daysha Veronica. Hey y'all, welcome back. I hope you're having a great week so far. I know I missed y'all 2 weeks ago, so two things happened. So first, my boyfriend, all cute and shit, he comes up to me and he's just like, let's go out for a picnic one day. And I'm like, oh, that's so sweet. So we order up some food, we go walk to the local park, and we bring our dog and this other dog that we were watching. And it's such a gorgeous day. And we're surrounded by all this grass, but we didn't sit in it. You know, we sat in the bleachers and we enjoyed our meal, or I should say I enjoyed my meal. Because Panera truly fucked up my boyfriend's order in like the most epic way. But then we remember that we have to head back home because we have couples therapy. So we're hustling to get back and we step in the door and all of a sudden I have this crazy itch in my throat. So I go to get some water, but it will not go away. So I just keep drinking all of this water. But as soon as I stop drinking the water, it's like my throat gets even itchier and I can't stop coughing, even just to get a cough drop in for some relief. And it gets to the point where it's so bad, like I stop trying because I'm even afraid that even if I do get the cough drop in there, I might choke on it. So it's just so bad. Like it's so bad that we can't even do couples therapy that day. And then because I keep coughing, eventually I feel like I'm about to throw everything up that I just ate. And so I'm just like, my only thought when it's a scratchy throat is allergies. So I do some research, I look up what I need to take, and maybe an hour after taking Zyrtec, my coughing has finally chilled enough for me to at least get a cough drop in, but my voice is just shot. It is like I sound like the most raspy smoker. But, thankfully that only lasts for a day. But then I hang out with Becky and we discover, the next day after hanging out that she has a fever, which should have triggered in my mind not to spend several hours in a car with her with the windows up, or at least, to put a mask on. But, my mind, I wasn't there. I just clearly was not all together. So to no one's surprise, I also get sick. But what's really tripping me out and why I'm even telling y'all all this to begin with is that when I finally start to feel better and I try to work on the next episode, which is this one, I swear it is like somebody took one of those mind wiping machines in Men in Black to my brain, because I'm looking at my next topic, because I plan all this stuff out and I'm like, why did I pick this? What is this? So then I look at my general topic doc to pick something new, but it's the same feeling. I'm like, I know there's a reason why I wanted to talk about this, but I can't tell you why. I don't remember the books I wanted to reference. I mean, it's like, I can't even recall all the research I've been doing on friendship for the last 3 years. So it's just been so weird and disorienting. And I feel like, because I heard that there's this new COVID variant going around, and I'm like, did I catch it? Like, is this it? Because I have never felt so out of it. Like I just can't remember things before. So anyway, all that is to say that this should be a fun episode. I did finally pick something that I was like, I think I can go with this. So yeah, so I landed on hosting versus hanging out. And I wanted to chat about this today because I feel like as a millennial who has grown up witnessing the shift of casual gatherings to these more aesthetic, curated, social media centered events, I can't help but feel like this shift has really been putting a strain on our friendships and the quality time that we spend with one another. So I wanted to dive deeper into that and offer some coaching on how to approach this problem, both from the perspective of the person throwing the hangout and then the people going to the hangout. So I feel like social media has deeply, deeply impacted how we interact with one another. And again, where I sit as a millennial, it's really interesting to have memories from what life was like pre-social media, what life was like as we were figuring out social media, and then to see what life is like now that social media has become an integral part of our everyday. I can't remember if I saw this on Threads or TikTok, but there was a post where someone was reminiscing about how growing up in the 90s and early 2000s, we didn't really throw big elaborate functions and then also call it a hangout. out. Like hanging out was literally calling up somebody to meet you at the park or to go chill in someone's living room, and maybe you ordered a pizza and someone busted out, your radio and some nail polish and you vibed. But hanging out as I knew it pre-social media was a totally low stakes opportunity for you and some people that either you know really well or that you were getting to know to just share space and see how you vibe. Then when Facebook became a thing, which was when I was in high school, hangouts were still low key and low stakes environments to just vibe with people. But now that there were more cameras, not so much cell phone cameras just yet, that more so exploded when I was in college and with the introduction of Instagram. But even still with the cameras, they didn't really infiltrate the hangout space as much as they made you obsessed with taking 8 million selfies from a 45-degree angle and with a pouty face in your bathroom. Like, I can't tell you how many ridiculous selfies I have from that era. But then, by the time I got to college, cameras were definitely starting to infiltrate the hangout more. But at the same time, because I feel like we were the generation where digital hygiene was really stressed, like everyone was always like, don't put your information out there online, be careful who you're talking to, like the era of like Dateline getting like the predators in the chat rooms. The pictures from the hangout were still meant to be these private tokens and mementos of fun nights that you had, but they weren't this like public thing because you didn't want a future employer to look you up and, find your Facebook page and see you doing a keg stand or holding the dreaded red Solo cup. But then I'd say once I arrived at BuzzFeed, which was around when I was 22, 23, that's when I feel like the floodgates really opened in terms of everyone trying to make their life more aesthetic and curated, like as if, you were producing your own reality show. So this would have been around 2015, 2016, where you really have the Kardashians taking over the zeitgeist. Like, I can't tell you. I just remember people were like, do the Kardashians own BuzzFeed? Like, do they have a stake in BuzzFeed? Because you guys are always talking about them. There's always some article about them, and we're just tired of it. And then I also think this was around the time when Snapchat was really popping off, especially with stories. And so then Instagram introduced stories. And then suddenly we just had unfiltered access to everyone's everyday. And then on top of that, this sense of pressure as a person existing online to turn your life into consumable content, that like perfect story. And I think that shift has also played a role in the stress that people feel both as hangout planners and as attendees. So when I turned 25, I wanted to throw this huge birthday bash party. My birthday is in the summer, and anyone with a summer birthday will tell you that it was brutal growing up because you got to see all your classmates celebrate their birthday in school and have class parties, but you could never do that. But see, here's my thing though, because even with other summer babies, because if your birthday was in June or July, you could often make up not getting a class birthday party with a summer camp birthday party, which I know it's not completely the same because sometimes your summer camp, you're only there for a limited amount of time. So your party is full of a bunch of people you don't really know or that you've connected with, but at least it was something. Okay, try being an August baby. And I mean second and third week August baby, okay? We always get screwed because first week of August, it's a 50-50 chance if you get a summer camp birthday. And then last week of August, it's a 50-50 chance if you get a classroom birthday, depending on, where you go to school and how classes fall and whatnot, the start of school. But us second and third week August babies, 9 times out of 10, we got jack shit. And, I'm not bitter at all. Not bitter. Anyway, all this is to say that because I didn't really have a ton of birthday celebrations in my life that were these like huge parties, I wanted to go all out. I was turning 25. It felt like a milestone, And this was like at the height of my BuzzFeed fame. So I'm really feeling myself. And I send out these fun, elaborate text invites. There was this thumbnail that I created for a video I was in that I really loved. And I was like, okay, I'm going to make this my invite cover. And And, I texted out to people, and then I planned for it to happen so this is also when I was doing salsa classes and just very involved in the salsa community. And so my salsa teacher would once a month have these salsa nights at a club. So I planned to have it happen during that salsa night. And, at the party, I set up this elaborate photo booth wall. And I'm doing so much extra shit, y'all. Just so much extra shit. I think I had a friend bake me this elaborate cookie cake. But of course, because people in LA, and I actually do think this is more unique to being a young adult in LA, but because no one here has a real sense of loyalty or dependability, I started getting a lot of texts from people being like, oh, I can't come, but I hope it's amazing and blah, 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 which then started putting a lot of stress on me because I'm like, well, I'm doing all this shit and, I'm making it real nice and, I got a large cake and, I'm doing all the things. And in hindsight, I had a great party. I salsa danced all night. Friends that I really loved and enjoyed their presence showed up. I was drunk as a skunk. I had a cookie cake and I fucking love cookies, okay? So it was a great party. But I do remember in the moment feeling this twinge of sadness in the back of my mind because it wasn't as full as I would have wanted it to be to show off on social media, especially because I think a few months earlier, I went to this other girl's birthday party and I dropped in to say happy birthday. She was a new friend that I had made and homegirl was having a bash, okay? It felt like something you'd see on my Super Sweet 16. So I felt this kind of pressure as someone with thousands of followers to really show up and show out and, that I didn't really deliver on that. Which is so funny, even recounting now because of how much I don't care. Or I should say I care a much healthier amount now because I do feel like in society we get into this oh my gosh, you shouldn't even care. No, it's not problematic to care. I just think it's when you care an unhealthy amount. So, I'm much better now about not letting my worth get tied up in how much my posts do on social media. Whereas back then I definitely felt like I was just so consumed with posting things that people would like or want to watch. Now I'm like, as you all know, this is what I got in me to do right now. So here we are. But I share this story because from the perspective of the hangout organizer, and I know this was my birthday, which is definitely different, but I feel like based on what I see on social media, people are going all out on hangouts like what I would expect someone to do for their birthday party or for some sort of milestone event. And listen, I get why you want to host a mythical garden themed brunch where everyone is only allowed to wear green and sparkly makeup and all the things. And you got balloons taped to the ceiling and a funky design and, these elaborate themed plates from Home Goods and all the fluff. I get it 1,000%. I love aesthetic. I'm very much into home design and all that stuff. That content gets me too. But I think the key word that I have to remind myself when I see that stuff is that it's someone's content, not necessarily their real life. And that while they have this beautiful video for me to marvel over and be inspired by, I guarantee you there were several people at the actual event who were hella annoyed because they just wanted to eat the fruit on the charcuterie board and they had to wait until everyone took 50-11 pictures and their beauty shots and all this stuff before they could. And then the food's all cold and it's not as good, or, they were irritated that they couldn't eat without there being a camera in their face. So that's not to say that I don't think there's value in creating or consuming that content, but I just think it's important to call it out for what it is so that we can really set expectations appropriately. Because I think we often forget that if it looks perfect on social media, it likely was a nightmare in real life as somebody who produces content. Not just for my personal stuff, but also produces content in a professional way because rarely are perfect moments caught on camera. So a string of really perfect shots likely means that they had to shoot what's supposed to be this organic, fun gathering of people 20 million times. And as an attendee to things like that, it can get really annoying very quickly because then it doesn't even feel like I got to hang out. It honestly just feels feels like I went to a job where I'm not getting paid. So first, I think if we are throwing a gathering, we have to be real about whether or not we are asking people to hang out with us, or are we asking them to make content with us? Because I'm not saying you can't have those more aesthetic and curated parties to show off on social media, but I do think you need to be clear for yourself so that you can manage your expectations of others appropriately. Because I see so many videos of people airing out their friends online, being like, no one wants to show up for me, and I did X, Y, and Z, and I spent all this money, and nobody wants to be a villager, and blah, 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 blah. And here's the thing. I agree that our sense of commitment to showing up for people has weakened over the years. But I also think our demands and expectations of others have equally risen in ways that have gotten really out of hand, and that there is a relationship between those two things happening. Like, I was just reading an article the other day about a woman whose best friend was getting married, and the best friend was just like, I want to have an expensive, elaborate bachelorette party. And the woman was like, I think she was her maid of honor, and she was just like, girl, I can't afford to do that. And the best friend chewed her out about it. And that is just so gross on so many levels. And I was actually relieved to hear that the woman ended up not going to the wedding. And then I also think they stopped being friends over it, because while I do think we should be willing to go the extra mile when it comes to milestone events like birthdays or weddings or baby showers, that also does not mean you should be going broke to celebrate your friend. You should not be putting yourself in harm's way to celebrate your friend. And real talk, a true friend wouldn't want you to. So my friends and I, we've been trying to plan a trip to visit our friend Rachel in Germany for forever now. But as y'all know, or maybe you don't know, I love my day job, but I get paid pennies, okay? So they know it's not like I don't want to go on the trip. I just have to be real about my financial situation and what I can afford to do. And everyone is so lovely about it. And they're like, we'll get there when we get there. But then also at one point it was floated that, maybe we can all even chip in and just buy your ticket. And I was like, y'all, that is the sweetest, kindest, that is so lovely of you to offer. But also, you definitely don't have to do that. But, the point in bringing that up is that everyone is doing and offering what they can because they truly care. And no one wants anyone to feel bad or left out or, stressed because they care. So if you're throwing the event, I think you need to be real about what you are asking of the people showing up. Are you inviting them over to connect with them, to hear about what's going on in their lives, to relax and release steam? Or are you asking them to get dolled up on their limited time off and to be camera ready for hours and to spend crazy amounts of money and basically be props for your content? Because that might explain why people are not so excited about getting together with you. Again, speaking to the theme of the episode, are you really trying to hang out with them, or are you asking them to be part of a production? Because it's not that I don't think people want to be part of your production every now and then, but if all of your quote unquote hangouts are actually productions, then you also got to think about it from their perspective. If we only get 2 days to ourselves in a traditional work week, you work a traditional job, it is hard to want to be part of someone's production all the time. Again, maybe I could do that once a month, but to have that expectation of someone to show up and be on during their off time every weekend is just too much. So you got to decide what are the events that are really important for people to show up for and for you to feel supported by having them there, and then communicate that. Then for everything else, you just got to be happy with whomever you get. And those real important events, like outside of weddings and birthdays, they should be things that are meaningful to you or that will have the biggest impact for you. If you're trying to get the attention of a brand that you want to work with, so that's why you're throwing this garden party brunch. Or, if you're really big in the fundraiser space and you're throwing a fundraiser for the cause that you care about. But it cannot be 50-11 brands or causes. It's got to be what would be the most important for you to have your people show up for, and then make sure that you communicate why it is important for them to show up to this particular event. That it's not just, a regular schmegular regular hangout, even though your hangouts are not regular smegular by any means, but that, this is an event that has a very important purpose to you. And that's why it would mean more to have them show up for this particular thing. So now, coming around to the attendees, the people who are being asked to hang out, just as much as it is important for the hangout throwers to be real about what they are asking of you, you gotta be just as real about what you have the capacity for. Because there is nothing I hate more than people who will say yes and then bail at the last minute, or who want to do the whole maybe game when you know that it's not actually a maybe, it's a no. Be real with people. Because then when it comes to people who are spending money thinking you're gonna be there and you're not, I can then understand their frustration. Like, that's really messed up. So if you feel like this person that's asking you to hang out is actually asking you to be part of their production, I think you got to be real with yourself and then ask for what you want from the situation. Is the issue that every hangout is a production? Because then I would figure out what you have the bandwidth for and then communicate it. You could say something like, I love that you're asking me to attend your garden party brunch, but I only have the bandwidth to sit on the couch and eat takeout this week. Is that something that we could do? Or, I love that you want me to come to your garden party brunch, but girl, I just need a weekend to chill, okay? It's been a week. Can we connect in another way this week that's more low key, just the two of us? Because then that lets them know that it's not that you don't want to see them, you just don't want to be part of this production they're throwing. And then that allows them to plan appropriately. Because I know we like to say maybe, hoping that people will get the hint or that they will take your indecision as a no, but I want you to be so for real with me right now. When someone tells you maybe, if you're on the other side and someone's telling you maybe, you're going to want to assume the best before you assume the worst. So you're going to want to assume that they're coming before you assume that they're not. So if you get mad at them for being mad at you for being unclear, that is just you not wanting to take accountability for the fact that your maybe was BS and you knew it, and they are calling you out on that. If you're a no, then you need to tell them you're a no. But then, and this is where I go back to the boundaries series that we did, I believe it's episodes 10, 11, and 12. It's around there somewhere. It is okay to tell people no, but also I would say it is imperative that you do it in a way that shows that you care. If you actually do care about the relationship. I can't remember what episode I talked about this in, but so much of our communication is not actually what you are saying, but how you are saying it to someone. So when I think about my birthday party, right, my issue was never with the fact that there were people who couldn't come, right? I think that I took more offense to the fact that it was very informal. It was just a text message. It was very brief. There was no offering of how do I make it up to you. It was just, sorry, can't come, hope it's fun, right? And even with saying that, I shouldn't say that I took offense to it. I think, it just taught me where I stood in that relationship, right? So maybe it was someone where I thought that we had more, and with a response like that, I was just like, oh, we're not as close. But then at the same time, as I have mentioned before, that is important information so that I then know now that this is not someone that I need to go out of my way for, right? So every interaction that you have is an opportunity for you to learn about where this relationship is going, where it is, how both parties are valuing the relationship. And then, if I truly felt offended, it's an opportunity for me to bring it up and be like, hey, I thought we were closer friends than this. And then, we can have a discussion about where our priorities are. But then, if it's not really that close of a relationship, it's an opportunity for me to check my emotions and be like, it would have been nice, but, okay, we're not that close. So, when they invite me to their pool party next month, I ain't gotta feel like I gotta go. Because when it's someone I care about and I can't show up for them, I almost always offer a reason as to why I can't, and then I offer alternatives to make it up to them. And it's not because I feel that I need to, but it's because I want to, because I care about them and I want them to know that if it weren't for this other circumstance, I would be there. So if you don't feel like you're actually getting to connect when you hang out, if the issue is just that you're just not interested in productions. It's not about bandwidth. It's just really like, this is not the hangout format for you. Say that. You could say, I love that you're inviting me to your garden party brunch, but personally, I really like low-key hangouts. I really like getting to feel like I'm connecting with someone. And when I go to events like that with you, it just doesn't feel like I'm connecting with you. So I would really prefer if, going forward, we did events that were more low-key, smaller groups, maybe just the two of us. And then you negotiate. And if you're new here, I do a whole episode on negotiating in our relationships and why we cannot be scared to do it. Because I feel like there's a cultural stigma around what it means to negotiate that needs to be deaded. Okay, killed, done. Because we all have the right to live a life that makes us feel good. And part of how you get to that life is by negotiating and asking for what you need. And then, depending on how much you value the relationship, conceding what you want. Okay? You should never be afraid to ask for and fight for what you need at the very least. But what we want is nice. What we need is paramount. So just knowing the difference there. So just as a recap of what I went over today, if you are the one throwing a gathering or a hangout or whatever you want to call it, you got to be clear about what you are asking of the people you are inviting and then adjust your expectations accordingly. So if you're truly asking people to hang out and, connect with you and they're still not showing up, that's a different conversation that involves really examining where you are designating those people in your rings. And if you're new here, there's a framework that I like to use that's called the Rings of Friendship. And I am blanking on what episode it is that I talk about that in depth. So I will put it in the show notes, but I would go listen to that because I talk about that framework a lot. But yeah, are you giving the right energy to the right people, or are you prioritizing relationships for other reasons? Like maybe servicing your ego, making you feel like you look good, or, things like that. But if you are actually asking people to be part of a production and you have productions a lot, then you need to be real with yourself about, one, why are all your gatherings built around showing off on social media? Why do they always need to be aesthetic or big and, just grandiose? Are you actually getting a chance to connect with your friends when you gather with them in this way? Really think about what is the purpose behind why you are wanting to gather with people in the first place. And then two, be empathetic to the fact that people only have so much bandwidth on their off time. So if that's just who you are, you cannot hang out in a not big way, or you have to hang out in a big way, then you got to learn to appreciate who does show up and, let go and let God for the rest, because it is really asking a lot of people to always show up for things that don't have to be a production. It's just because you like it that way. Because, you could even say that it's okay if they show up in their sweats, right? But nobody wants to be that person in the background that looks like they don't belong, that looks like they just rolled out of bed and everyone else looks all cute and aesthetic and whatever. So, just really think about what you are asking of someone, even if you're trying to say it's okay, you can still come with your hair down. So I think a great example of this in my personal life is that every month, me and my two closest friends out here, we have a calendar invite to hang out. And it's understood that during this time, the reason why we are gathering is to catch up and connect. So we eat food, we watch TV, we go to farmers markets, but it is always, 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 always low key. No one is expecting anyone to be dressed to the nines or to have a full face of makeup on or for this to even end up on social media. Now, sometimes it does, but again, there is no expectation for anyone to be fancy or social media ready. But then every now and then we will throw a more structured event like the one I threw for Christmas. And for that, I did put out a few more expectations on them. I asked for people to come in Christmas colors. Now, was I going to throw them out if they didn't show up in the right colors? No, of course not. But it was signaling that this is something that I am putting together, that I am hosting, so that people, if they want to take pictures and be more on that social media documenting tip, that I was creating an environment for that. But I will also say for me that at the end of the day, when I throw hangouts, it's really because I want to connect with people. So while I might have an event with a dress code, I can't tell you how lax that dress code is. Like, yes, it would be amazing, but at the end of the day, like, I just want you to come and eat and enjoy the vibes. So, I always stress that. But like I said, no one wants to look like they don't belong. So if someone doesn't come for that reason, I get it and I don't stress it. And then for my people who keep bailing on invites to hang out or who aren't being clear about whether or not they're actually coming to something, stop it. Stop it. Be clear about your intentions. Even if you are truly unsure about whether or not you can make it to something, be clear. Because I would always rather someone say no and be a surprise yes than to have someone say yes and then be a surprise no. And, be real about what's holding you back from wanting to go. Are you stressed out because the person's gatherings are always productions? Then say that and negotiate for other ways to connect with them that work for you. But just know that the more you flake or the more you are short with people when you do turn things down, the more you're communicating that you don't care about the relationship or that the relationship is not as important to you. So if that's truly not the case and you do like the person and you do want to hang out, but you just want to do it in a more low stakes way, then communicate that and ask for it. And then remember that what I'm offering is solely around casual gatherings and get-togethers. Milestone events like birthdays and anniversaries and baby showers, those are a bit different. Again, not that you should be going broke or putting yourself in harm's way to celebrate your friend going through that major milestone. But for events like that, again, if you really care about the person in the relationship, you should be willing to put in the effort to show up, even if it's a little inconvenient, because villages are important, but we have to be willing to be a villager for others in order to have the village in the first place. But I also get why people have been all over the place recently about not showing up because everyone is making even a casual brunch feel like a 50th anniversary party because of social media. And we have got to chill on that. We have to chill. And we've also got to get better boundaries around attending the things that matter and being optional about what doesn't. All right, that's it for this week. As always, if there's something you want to chat more about, feel free to drop me a comment wherever you are listening. And then, make sure you hit me up on Threads or TikTok or Instagram. All right, I'll catch you next time, besties. Your girl is out. Hey besties, if you are loving Real Talk Friend Therapy, I want to hear about it. So make sure you screenshot the episode and tag me on social media with your favorite part. I can't wait to see.